Alright guys, Simon here, we're playing Assassin's Creed 2 and it's time to do our architecture tour of Venice. Yes, the whole of Venice. Except for the buildings that we've already seen already, which is the Assassin's tombs and whatnot. So we're gonna do the whole city, because we've unlocked finally we've unlocked one full city here. And we've got a lot of landmarks to look at. I guess first of all we should look at the city itself. What does the game have to say about Venice? Let me just go to the database and locations and Venice. Wait a minute, there's two missing entries. There's two missing entries. Why is that? Why is that? Let's see. Castello district, like Dorsoduro district. Whoa, what? Silmarco district. No, that's not the right one. Santa Maria, Rialto, missing entry, missing entry. That's not good. Wait a minute. We're missing the Dorsoduro district. We're missing the district entries. Look, there's the Castello. That's to the far east. There's Cannaregio, just to the north. San Giacomo di Rialto. No, this would be like this district that we're standing in right now. It's missing from the database. Yeah, it is. It should be the district and the city of Venice itself. These are the two missing entries. How do we get these? That's not good. Hold on. Like, this is the district that we're in right now. That should be those two entries, but we don't see it, do we? I don't know what to do about that. I honestly don't. Because supposedly you walk into the district and you should unlock it, right? Or maybe it's the viewpoints that you do to unlock it. Because if we... Let's see, let me just look at the other cities. Because if we look at the database... no. Database, location, let's say Florence. Oh, that's missing two entries too. Except there, it's got... No, why does it do that? There, it's got Firenze, see that? It's got the actual city and San Giovanni district. So these are the two... Like, it's got the city itself as an entry in the database, whereas we're missing that in the game, it seems like. No idea how that happened. Maybe we can look it up on the internet. Maybe we can find it. Alright, let's go to web browser. And then let's go to Assassin's Creed 2 database. Database entries, Assassin's Creed Wiki. Maybe we can do this, and this will unlock, well, not unlock, but this will tell us what we're missing. Let's see, there's people, there's society. I don't want to look at the people just yet. Locations, Venice, here we go. So Venice, there's Venezia itself, and then what's the district? San Marco? No, it's not the San Marco district, it's Dorsoduro, Castello. That's not right. What's this one? That's to the north. Castello is to the east, Dorsoduro is the south. No, San Marco district, no. Then Zaccaria community. Huh. I just need to figure out which one's the missing one. It's listed alphabetically too, so that doesn't really help. Campanile di San Marco. We've got that with the Shasanali. Castello District. District of São Paulo. District of São Paulo? Yeah, that's the one. That's one we're missing. So we're missing, for some reason we're missing these two. I don't know why. Alright, so there we go. So those are database entries we're missing. We can read that. And then let's go to Google and let's go for Venice and just what is the map and then the Wikipedia entry and I guess images is also good. Or maybe I should open the images up in a new window. Anyway, so those are pictures of Venice. That's quite nice. Look at that. That's quite nice there. A lot of high dynamic range images. Interesting. Because Venice at night time is kind of nice too. The most serene Republic of Venice. Alright, let's just go back to the Assassin's Creed. So if we had the... Wait a minute, database entry. Is that the database entry? That doesn't seem right. No, that's not the database entry. Why are there... that gives us the history and things as well. Alright, so Venice, Italian Venezia, is a city located in northern Italy. During the 15th century, Venice was the capital and largest city of the most serene Republic of Venice and consisted of 5 districts: San Polo, San Marco, Dorsoduro, Castello, and Cannaregio. Originally founded by refugees from the Hunnic and Germanic invasions of Padua, Aquileia, and Altino, Venice developed into a major trade and naval power in southern Europe, becoming one of the wealthiest cities in the world, and by the year 1499 it was engaged in sporadic conflict with the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire obviously wanted in on the trade in the Mediterranean, and so they started... So, they came into conflict with Venice. I don't think this is the actual database entry. This is... I don't know what's... San Polo District? The San Polo District is a district of the Italian city of Venice. It was within this district that the Assassin's SEO Nadatore de Firenze befriended the Venetian Thieves Guild. Yeah, I don't think these are the actual database entries. Can I go back to the database? Assassin's Creed 2 database entries. Database entries. Maybe it's... There's pages there and that there. No, just list them. It doesn't actually give us the... It doesn't actually give us the database entries. Okay, never mind. It's not that important. Alright, let's go on with Venice. The city of Venice itself. So, according to Wikipedia... Wow, it's a pretty long... That's really long, right? Venice, Italian Venezia, is a city in northeastern Italy, sited on a group of 118 small islands separated by canals and linked by bridges. It is located in the marshy Venetian lagoon, which stretches along the shoreline between the mouths of the Po and the Piave rivers. Venice is renowned for the beauty of its setting, its architecture, and its artworks. The city in its entirety is listed as a World Heritage Site along with its lagoon. Venice is the capital of the Veneto region. In 2009, that's not really useful. I'm not going to read about the modern stats and politics. The name is derived from the ancient Veneti people who inhabited the region by the 10th century BC. The city historically was the capital of the Republic of Venice. Venice has been known as La Dominate, Serenissima, Queen of the Adriatic, City of Water, City of Masks, city of bridges, the floating city, and city of canals. Luigi Bazzini described it in the New York Times as undoubtedly the most beautiful city built by man. Why is that important? The New York Times. Venice has also been described by the Times Online as being one of Europe's most romantic cities. Mostly because of the water. The Republic of Venice was a major maritime power during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, and a staging area for the Crusades and the Battle of Lepanto, as well as a very important center of commerce, especially silk, grain, and spice. Well, grain I'm not sure about, but silk and spice. So silk comes from China, right? And spice comes from the Middle East. So bringing in this valuable stuff from the Middle East into Europe. And art in the 13th century up to the end of the 17th century. This made Venice a wealthy city throughout most of its history. It is also known for its several important artistic movements, especially the Renaissance period. Venice has played an important role in the history of symphonic and operatic music, and is the birthplace of Antonio Vivaldi. That's cool. What else do we have to say? Region that's not all that useful. That's a coat of arms. It's not that important. Alright, let's go on. History. Wow, it's got a separate page. I'm not going to go to the separate page. It's going to take forever to read through all of this. Origins. I'm going to read up until the Renaissance, I think. Maybe a little bit after. Although there are no historical records that deal directly with the founding of Venice, tradition and the available evidence have led several historians to agree that the original population of Venice consisted of refugees from Roman cities near Venice, such as Padua, Aquileia, Trevisto, and Altino, and Concordia, modern Portogruaro, and from the undefended countryside, who were fleeing successive waves of Germanic and Hun invasions. Some late Roman sources reveal the existence of fishermen on the islands in their original marshy lagoons. They were referred to as incolae lacunae, lagoon dwellers. The traditional founding is identified with the dedication of the first church, that of Saint Giacomo, at the islet of Rialto. Rialto High Shore, which is said to have been at the stroke of noon on the 25th of March 421. The last and most enduring immigration into the north of the Italian peninsula was that of the Lombards in 568, leaving the Eastern Roman Empire a small strip of coast in the current Veneto, including Venice. So you see what's going on there. So as the quote-unquote barbarians invaded Italy and took over Rome, the old Romans retreated onto the islands of Venice and used the lagoon as a defense against the invaders. And so here it's saying that like the last outpost of the Eastern Roman Empire, this is the Byzantine Empire, in Italy was the Veneto and Venice. And so so unlike most of the rest of Italy, Venice has closer ties to Byzantium than the rest of Italy. So the Roman Byzantine territory was organized as the Exarchate of Ravenna, administered from that ancient port and overseen by a viceroy, the Exarch, appointed by the emperor in Constantinople. But Ravenna and Venice were connected only by sea routes, and with the Venetians' isolated position came increasing autonomy. New ports were built, including those at Malamocco and Torcello in the Venetian lagoon. The Tribuni Maiores, the earliest central standing governing committee of the islands in the lagoon, dated from circa 568. The traditional first Doge of Venice, Paolo Lucio Anavesto, was actually Exarch Paul, and his successor, Marcello Tigliano, Paul's Magister Militum, Master of Soldiers. That's a sentence. In 726, the soldiers and the citizens of the Exarchate rose in a rebellion over the iconoclastic controversy at the urging of Pope Gregory II. The Exarch was murdered and many officials put to flight in the chaos. At about this time, the people of the lagoon elected their own leader for the first time. Although the relationship of this ascent to the uprisings is not clear. Ursus would become the first of 117 doges. Doge is the Venetian dialect development of the Latin dux, leader. The corresponding word in English is duke, in standard Italian duce. Whatever his original views, Ursus supported Emperor Leo's successful military expedition to recover Ravenna, sending both men and ships. In recognition, Venice was granted numerous privileges and concessions, and Ursus, who had personally taken the field, was confirmed by Leo as dux, and given the added title of Hypatus, Greek for council. So they rebelled against the Byzantines, I believe, and switched allegiance to the Pope in Italy, which is the Western leader of the Catholic Church, the Pope. In 751, the Lombard king Aistulf conquered most of the Exarchate of Ravenna, leaving Venice as a lonely and increasingly autonomous Byzantine outpost. Hold on, wait a minute. So the Pope helped organize the rebellion against the Exarch, but then Ursus came in, became the leader, and then supported the Emperor Leo's. This is the Byzantine Empire, the Byzantine Emperor's military expedition to recover Ravenna. So then Ursus switched back to the Byzantine Empire. That's amazing. So the Pope managed to organize a rebellion to overthrow the old ruler appointed by the Byzantines, but then the new ruler immediately switched back his allegiance to the Byzantines. Alright. Leaving Venice as a lonely and increasingly autonomous Byzantine outpost. During this period, the seat of the local Byzantine governor, the Dux Dux, later Doge, was situated in Melamocco. Settlement on the islands in the lagoon probably increased in correspondence with the Lombard conquest of other Byzantine territories as refugees sought asylum in the lagoon city. In 775 to 776, the episcopal seat of Olivolo, Helipolis, was created. During the reign of Duke Agnello Particiaco, the ducal seat was moved from Melamocco to the highly protected Rialto, the current location of Venice. So they retreated onto the islands of Venice. The monastery of St. Zachary and the first ducal palace and basilica of St. Mark, as well as a walled defense, the Civitatis Murus between Olivolo and Rialto, were subsequently built here. So winged lions, which may be seen throughout Venice, are a symbol for St. Mark. So that's when the building of Venice started. Seriously started. Charlemagne sought to subdue the city to its own rule. He ordered the Pope to expel the Venetians from the Pentapolis along the Adriatic coast. Charlemagne's own son, Pippin of Italy, king of the Lombards, under the authority of his father, embarked on a siege of Venice itself. This, however, proved a costly failure. A few months later, Pippin himself died, apparently as a result of a disease contracted there. In the aftermath, an agreement between Charlemagne and Nicephorus in 814 recognized Venice as Byzantine territory and granted the city trading rights along the Adriatic coast. So somehow, Venice remained a Byzantine outpost in Italy, while most of the rest of Italy became Lombard territory, I guess. In 828, the new city's prestige was raised by the acquisition of the claimed relics of St. Mark the Evangelist from Alexandria, which were placed in the new basilica. The patriarchal seat was also moved to Rialto as the community continued to develop, and as Byzantine power waned, it led to the growth of autonomy and eventual independence. So that that I mean it gives Venice a special flavor. Like it's an interesting mix of Byzantine and Italian influences, especially later on. Like Saint Mark is quite clearly, like you can see it there. It's kind of small on the screen. Saint Mark's Basilica is quite clearly a Byzantine church, but then there's a lot of Italian Renaissance buildings. But it's an interesting mix. So so Venice has its own unique flavor, even in Italy. Anyway, expansion. From the 9th to the 12th century, Venice developed into a city-state, an Italian thalassocracy or Republica Mariana. The other three being Genoa, Pisa, and Amalfi. So a marine republic, like a port state, I guess. Its strategic position at the head of the Adriatic made Venetian naval and commercial power almost invulnerable. With the elimination of pirates along the Dalmatian coast, the city became a flourishing trade center between Western Europe and the rest of the world, especially the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. The Republic of Venice seized a number of places on the eastern shores of the Adriatic before 1200, mostly for commercial reasons. Because pirates based there were a menace to trade, the Doge already carried the titles of Duke of Dalmatia and Duke of Istria. Later mainland possessions, which extended across Lake Garda as far west as the Oder River, were known as the Terra Firma, and were acquired partly as a buffer against belligerent neighbors, partly to guarantee alpine trade routes, and partly to ensure the supply of mainland wheat, on which the city depended. So as its power grew, it expanded both along the Adriatic coast to the east, gaining kind of colonies, I guess, or ports, and also inland from the lagoon for farmland and also a territorial buffer against possible enemies. In building its maritime commercial empire, the Republic dominated the trade in salt, acquired control of salt is important. I don't know if you're aware, like salt these days seems pretty, mundane. But in the old days, salt was really important because that's one of the only ways to preserve meat. And there's no refrigerators. And so salted meat was how you kind of preserve, meat. It's quite important and quite valuable in some places, depending on how far you are away from salt. Although the fact that you can turn seawater into salt makes it kind of redundant, I feel like. Although not everyone, like, you think salt would be quite abundant, given that you can turn seawater into salt by evaporating it, right? But it's still quite valuable. What was I saying? The Republic dominated the trade in salt, acquired control of most of the islands in the Aegean, including Cyprus and Crete. So, that's pretty amazing, Cyprus and Crete, and became a major power broker in the Near East. By the standards of the time, Venice's stewardship of its mainland territories was relatively enlightened, and the citizens of such towns as Bergamo, Brescia, and Verona rallied to the defense of Venetian sovereignty when it was threatened by invaders. So Venice... The thing is, Venice didn't rely on land for money, and then this is kind of important because, back in feudal Europe, if your source of income is taxing your farmers, then you become quite oppressive towards the farming peasants in your territory. But the way Venice functioned, like its income wasn't from the farms, it got food from the farms, but it didn't rely on the tax income on those farmers to sustain itself. It relied on trading income to sustain itself. And so it could treat its farmers and peasants really nicely because they didn't need to exploit them for wealth. They had to trade. Whereas, if you didn't have the trading income and you relied on the farming income as your main source of income, then you would have to kind of oppress your peasants to kind of squeeze more money out of them, as it were. Venice remained closely associated with Constantinople, being twice granted trading privileges in the Eastern Roman Empire through the so-called Golden Bulls or Chrysobulls in return for aiding the Eastern Empire to resist Norman and Turkish incursions. In the first Chrysobull, Venice acknowledged its homage to the empire, but not in the second, reflecting the decline of Byzantium and the rise of Venice's power. So it also kind of engaged in diplomatic warfare or diplomatic military expeditions to gain trading rights with Constantinople. Venice became an imperial power following the Fourth Crusade, which, having veered off course, culminated in 1204 by capturing and sacking Constantinople and establishing the Latin Empire. As a result of this conquest, considerable Byzantine plunder was brought back to Venice. This plunder included the gilt bronze horses of the Hippodrome of Constantinople, which were originally placed above the entrance to St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, although the originals have been replaced with replicas and are now stored within the basilica. Following the fall of Constantinople, the former Roman Empire was partitioned along the Latin Crusaders and the Venetians. The former Eastern Roman Empire, I guess you'd call it, was partitioned among the Latin Crusaders and the Venetians. So here they make a distinction between the Latin Crusaders, which are, from England, France, I guess Italy as well, and Spain and Germany, and the Venetians. The Venetians are, they're distinctly Eastern in influence. Venice subsequently carved out a sphere of influence in the Mediterranean known as the Duchy of the Archipelago and captured Crete. The seizure of Constantinople would ultimately prove as decisive a factor in ending the Byzantine Empire as the loss of the Anatolian themes after Manzikert. Although the Byzantines recovered control of the ravaged city a half-century later, the Byzantine Empire was terminally weakened and existed as a ghost of its old self until Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror took the city in 1453. Situated on the Adriatic Sea, Venice always traded extensively with the Byzantine Empire and the Muslim world, which is kind of amazing, given that, well, I guess, that the Latin powers weren't friendly with the Muslims because of the Crusades and whatnot, but somehow Venice managed to differentiate itself enough to maintain trading relations with the Muslim world. So it is tried to, although it participated in the Fourth Crusade, but the Fourth Crusade didn't end up in the Holy Lands. It ended up in Constantinople, which is kind of weird. Things are strange, but you see how all along this history, Venice is distinct from the rest of Italy and the rest of Europe. It maintained a sort of a close relationship with Constantinople, even though it conquered it at some point. By the late 13th century, Venice was the most prosperous city in all of Europe. At the peak of its power and wealth, it had 36,000 sailors operating 3,300 ships, dominating Mediterranean commerce. During this time, Venice's leading families vied with each other to build the grandest palaces and support the work of the greatest and most talented artists. The city was governed by the Grand Council, which was made up of members of the noble families of Venice. The Great Council appointed all public officials and elected a senate of 200 to 300 individuals. Since this group was too large for efficient administration, a council of 10, also called the Ducal Council, or the Signoria, controlled much of the administration of the city. One member of the Great Council was elected Doge, or Duke, the ceremonial head of the city, who normally held the title until his death. The Venetian governmental structure was similar in some ways to the republican city system of ancient Rome, with an elected chief executive, the Doge, a senate-like assembly of nobles, and a mass of citizens with limited political power who originally had the power to grant or withhold the approval of each newly elected Doge. The church and various private properties were tied to military service, although there was no knight tenure within the city itself. The Cavalieri di Simaco was the only order of chivalry ever instituted in Venice, and no citizen could accept or join a foreign order without the government's consent. Venice remained a republic throughout its independent period, and politics and the military were kept separate, except when on occasion the Doge personally headed the military. War was regarded as a continuation of commerce by other means, hence the city's early production of large numbers of mercenaries for service elsewhere, and later its reliance on foreign mercenaries when the ruling class was preoccupied with commerce. The chief executive was the Doge, who theoretically held its elective office for life. In practice, several Doges were forced by pressure from their oligarchical peers to resign the office and retire into monastic seclusion when they were felt to have been discredited by previous or by perceived political failure. Although the people of Venice generally remained Orthodox Roman Catholics, the state of Venice was notable for its freedom from religious fanaticism, and it enacted not a single execution for religious heresy during the Counter-Reformation. This apparent lack of zeal contributed to Venice's frequent conflicts with the papacy. In this context, the writings of the Anglican divine William Bedell are particularly illuminating. Venice was threatened with the interdict on a number of occasions and twice suffered its imposition. The second most famous occasion was in 1606 by order of Pope Paul V. Venetian ambassadors sent home still extant secret reports of the politics and rumors of European courts, providing fascinating information to modern historians. I don't know why that's important. Why is that sentence in the article? The newly invented German printing this is later on. Printing press. By 1482, Venice was the printing capital of the world. That's amazing. Okay, let's skip through a lot of this stuff because this is later on in the game. Venice's long decline started in the 15th century when it first made an unsuccessful attempt to hold Thessalonica against the Ottomans. So later on the Ottomans became too powerful because like Venice is, as powerful as it was only one city, whereas the Turks actually built an empire. The Ottomans, I believe, were in Egypt. Eventually they reclaimed the Holy Lands, and they were in Turkey as well. So there was a massive empire. So eventually Venice got overpowered by the Muslims. Yeah, so here we go. It also sent ships to help defend Constantinople against the besieging Turks. I took the wrong side there. After Constantinople fell to the Sultan Mehmed II, he declared war on Venice. The war lasted 30 years and cost Venice much of its eastern Mediterranean possessions. Next, Christopher Columbus discovered the New World. Then Portugal found the sea route to India, destroying Venice's land route monopoly. Oh, there we go. So then, yeah, so they found a sea route to India, which I still feel like the land route is shorter. Like going past the Near East and then to Asia. It's closer, but then it didn't have to deal with the Muslims. So it was kind of safer, even though it was longer, to take a ship, around America and then to India. Oh, wait a minute. Portugal found a route to India. Was that around Africa? No, that was around... My bad. That was around Africa. So they went south around Africa, bypassing the Muslims, and then to India. And so it didn't have to deal with the Muslims. And also then Venice lost its kind of advantage of being on the trade route, because the trade routes changed. France, England, and the Dutch Republic followed them. Venice's old galleys were at a disadvantage when it came to traversing the great oceans, and therefore Venice was left behind in the race for colonies. The Black Death devastated Venice in 1348 and once again between 1575 and 1577. In 3 years, the plague killed some 50,000 people. That's terrible. In 1630, the plague killed a third of Venice's 150,000 citizens. Wow, plague. And it's a bad city for plague because it's quite dense. Like because they're on a couple of islands, there's not too much open space for people to escape to, and the canals aren't the most sanitary things in the world neither. So that happened. Venice began to lose its position as a center of international trade during the later part of the Renaissance, as Portugal became Europe's principal intermediary in the trade with the East, striking at the very foundation of Venice's great wealth, while France and Spain fought for hegemony over Italy in the Italian Wars, marginalizing its political influence. However, the Venetian Empire was a major exporter of agricultural products and, until the mid-18th century, a significant manufacturing center. Oh well, so I'm not going to read the rest of that because that's the modern era and subsidence, and although this is interesting, you should read it, but I'm not going to because it's getting a bit tiring for me. So there's the districts. San Polo, Santa Croce, Dorsoduro, Cannaregio di Castello, and San Marco. So it's vaguely correct in the game, although the sizes are different. 6 districts, governments, we're not going to read all that. Economy, tourism. Today it's mostly tourism. Actually, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. Maybe I'll skim through it myself. Carnival of Venice. Interesting. Venetian economy. Glass. Murano glass production. In Murano and lace production in Burano are also highly important to the economy. Okay, never mind. Oh, transport. That's vaguely important to architecture. Actually, you can kind of see it there. There's a main canal there. It's quite a bit thicker than the other canals, although not as big as it is in the game. Alright, here we go. Transport in the historical cities. Venice is built on an archipelago of 117 islands formed by 177 canals in a shallow lagoon, connected by 409 bridges. In the old center, the canals serve the function of roads, and almost every form of transport is on water or on foot. But with the interesting feature that the foot traffic is on a different network from the boat traffic, whereas in most cities, like the vehicular traffic, the cars are on the same network as the footpaths mostly. In Venice, it's like 2 completely separate networks, which is kind of fun. In the 19th century, a causeway to the main that's not important, but there's a bridge to the mainland now. You don't have to take a boat out to the city anymore. That's the classical Venetian boat is I'm reading from here, is the gondola, although it is now mostly used for tourists or for weddings, funerals and other ceremonies, or as traghetti to cross the Canale Grande in the absence of a nearby bridge. So there's not as many bridges along the main canal as you would like. Many gondolas are largely appointed with crushed velvet seats and Persian rugs. Less well known is the smaller Sandolo. At the front of each gondola that works in the city, there is a large piece of metal called the ferro or iron. Its shape has evolved through the centuries, as documented in many well-known paintings. Its form, topped by a likeness of the Doge's hat, became gradually standardized and was then fixed by local law. It consists of 6 bars pointing forward representing the sestieri of the city, and one that points backward representing the Giudecca. Not sure why that's important. Waterways. Venezia is a city of small islands, enhanced during the Middle Ages by the dredging of soils to raise the marshy ground above the tides. The resulting canals encouraged the flourishing of a nautical culture which proved central to the economy of the city. Today, those canals still provide a means for transport of goods and people within the city. The maze of canals threaded through the city requires the use of more than 400 bridges to permit the flow of foot traffic. In 2011, the city opened Ponte della Costituzione, the 4th bridge across the Grand Canal, connecting the Piazzale Roma bus terminal area with the Stazione Ferroviaria, the train station, which would be there, I guess. The others being the original Ponte di Rialto, the Ponte dell'Accademia, and the Ponte degli Scalzi. So across the main canal, there's only 4 bridges. The lagoon area, that's not all that useful. Mainland, no, that's not important. This is like modern transportation, trains and airports and whatnot. Education, culture. That's not. Oh, architecture. Here we go. Let's read about architecture. Wow. See also Venetian Gothic architecture. Oh, architecture exhibitions. Hold on. Venice has a rich and diverse architectural style, the most famous of which is the Gothic style. Venetian Gothic architecture is a term given to a Venetian building style combining the use of the Gothic lancet arch with Byzantine, Ottoman, and a lot of Venetian architectural influences. So because of the fact that it's kind of like it's a marine empire sort of, or it was at the height of its power. So it traveled, like the people of Venice traveled a lot to the Byzantine Empire, to the Ottoman Empire, and then across the Mediterranean. So it's got a lot of influences from different parts of the Mediterranean, as it says here. The style originated in 14th century Venice, where the confluence of Byzantine style from Constantinople met Arab influence from Moorish Spain. Chief examples of the style are the Doge's Palace and the Ca d'Oro in the city. The city also has several Renaissance and Baroque buildings, including the Ca Pazzaro and the Ca Rezionico. Not sure if we'll see all of this stuff. Music, let's not worry about that. Interior design. But Rococo is later on though. It's not the Renaissance as it is in games, so a lot of art, a lot of different arts. The Carnival of Venice still goes on today. Notable people. Alright, well that's us reading about Venice and skipping most of it. Maybe alright, let's just look at it instead of reading about it. Let's just look at. Let's just keep this open. Let's just look at the stuff in the game. Maybe that's more useful than just reading about it. But look at this stuff. So the Rialto Bridge is there. That's where we are now in game. Let's close those. And go back to the game. Alright, so what should we do first? I guess we should just go through the the buildings in the database. Should we do that? Locations, Venice. So those are the district and the city of Venice. San Giacomo di Rialto. What is this? Originally founded in 421, San Giacomo is believed to be the oldest church in Venice, although the current building was constructed around 1071. The 15th century facade is crowned with a magnificent 24-hour celestial clock. During the Renaissance, the church was typically used by the merchants in the nearby market as a place to stop and pray during the workday. At least that's what they told their wives. If you say so. Actually, did we look at this already? Hold on, let me just go back. Yeah, we did look at that already. That was one of the assassin's tombs, and so was the... Oh no, that wasn't, my bad. That was a... No, we didn't look at it, my bad. Alright, so San Giacomo di Rialto. Let's see if we can find this.